Honestly, the biggest thing I did take away is that this was a pretty underwhelming first book, but despite the rocky start, I do feel like it has a lot of potential. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio, the first book in the Sun Eater series, which I do feel like I am very late to getting to. I have been told about this series for years, and there's a couple of things I've been told that really stand out. Is one, I have been told that I will really enjoy the prose, and that it's a series that I will probably really enjoy, especially for that reason. And two, that the first book is pretty derivative and has a lot of that, but then it gets better. So I feel like I had the right expectations here, and I feel like those right expectations really helped because both of those things turned out to be quite correct. I really like the prose. Christopher Ruocchio, his way of writing, I think is really enjoyable, and I did do a nice chunk of this on audio because the narrator, Sam Ruocchio, narrating with that beautiful prose worked really well for me. So I feel like I was enjoying myself enough just because of those elements. However, the other point ended up being quite true as well, where I did find a lot of this to be very derivative. There are a lot of the plot lines, the things happening, didn't feel the most original. You can definitely see a lot of the Dune inspiration, and like there's even specifically you have like the handheld or not handheld, like the portable like shield belt things. You have other things like high matter swords, which are lightsabers, and just some other elements that are very reminiscent of different sci-fi things. We have elements with gladiators and the Colosseum, which has been a weirdly popular thing to use in sci-fi for a while too. And so just a lot of these things happening, a lot of different plot lines that just didn't feel particularly original or like they really needed to be a huge focus. And so while I was having a pretty decent time just base going through, I wasn't, the plot itself, nor the character, to be honest, wasn't really pulling me in and engaging me. And I think Hadrian's a solid character, and we start to see some flashes there. And I think, not to say a bad character, it was more so the plot that it didn't pull me in a ton. However, throughout, we start getting these little glimpses and hints of things to come. Specifically, the Cielson, I'm very interested to see more of them and this alien race, but also there's some hints of like things from the deep past and kind of the lore that's being established. Those are the things that really pulled me in, and I'm really actually interested to see where we're going to go. Seems like there's a lot of mysteries in this world, a lot of things that we will potentially be discovering, and so I'm very curious to see more of that kind of thing. And again, I really can't understate if you're a reader who really pays attention to prose. Christopher Ruocchio is a really good writer, and I think the prose again, the prose and just my base level enjoyment of reading this, I would probably continue it even if I had been a little lower on it than I was. I ended up, I will say, about 3.5 here, which I think is fair because it's pretty good. I did round up to a 4 when I rated it on Goodreads. It's good enough written, and it has enough solid things that's pulled me through. Now, it's one of those things I feel like you do have to be careful of because if this book, if the prose was not very good or if it was just kind of average, I don't know if I would have even finished this, to be honest. And I think that's one of those things where prose does matter. Like, it can't just be the prose. There were other things here that I thought were well done, and that pulled me in and had me intrigued. But also, it's the kind of thing I have found about myself is that if I'm reading, like, the more Sanderson workman-like prose, there has to be quite a lot more to pull me in, because if it's just that and also it doesn't feel like it's doing anything particularly original or riveting, I'm gonna bounce most likely pretty hard. And I did have some other issues and complaints here. I feel like with some of the character motivations early on and kind of throughout actually don't necessarily there's not a lot there. It doesn't necessarily make sense why people are doing what they're doing. They're just doing it because that's what we need to move the story along. The pacing, which also is another common complaint I've heard, is a little bit messy here because again, this is more so, it seems like this book is to get us to the end. Yeah, all books in some ways are, but we're jumping forward, we're moving through, we're skipping over things, and we're just trying to establish the base background of this character, why they are what they're doing, what's going on, and then get them to point B, which is the end of the book here, which is really where we're going to be springing off for the rest of the series. Now, it's my understanding that we do jump around over a fair bit of time throughout the series as well, so I'm sure there'll still be more of that. but I imagine we're not going to have it be kind of the choppy pacing as much, at least I hope not, as we go along. And I think that's some of the big thing. I will say, completely spoiler free, I won't spoil, but the very ending of this, there's also, again, there's something that just feels like it was kind of that really moment. And I didn't mind it terribly because, again, I liked enough. And there were some things that I was really interested in right toward the end, where you start to get a little bit more information about the aliens, about the lore, that type of thing. And those are the things that I'm really, really curious on. And so I like those things, but there is just some other things that just sort of happen, and they don't feel like there's a lot of a reason for them, but it's just kind of, this is the story being told. So those are the things that I'm looking to improve in book 2. I am definitely going to be continuing. I'm actually going to be reading the Novella of the Lesser Devil here really soon, after filming this video as well. So I'm going to be doing that one and continuing. And again, I feel like it's one of those things too to think about, where as far as like some of the stuff with this is, this is a first book, and I believe this is his debut, unless there's something else before this that I wasn't aware of. So there's some things that, authors often, can improve, but I found prose is something that you can get better at as well. But it's one of the things that's kind of harder, I feel like, to improve. Figuring out your mechanics, figuring out how to get better at writing characters or better at plotting. I feel like those are things that a lot of times authors are naturally progress at as the more they write. But your baseline writing style in prose is something that can be harder, because that tends to be something that's more you. Now, granted, that's certainly not a rule. There are authors who really switch up their prose depending on what they're writing. But I feel like that's kind of the thing, is like that baseline, it's really good. And so assuming that we improve with those other aspects, which everybody has told me that happens, this definitely could end up being a series that I really, really enjoy. And I am very interested to continue. I think it does enough well here, again, where we still have, the characters is interesting, and it's not just like the character of Hadrian is not just like a one-to-one comparison to any other character, but we're seeing somebody who has, a childhood that wasn't necessarily the best. They're going through a lot of trials and tribulations, and we're seeing their motivation. And I think Hadrian's motivations are also very interesting, because his goals and what he wants, at least in this first book, are not what you would really expect. It's not, he doesn't want to really go off and like be a soldier, or go off and, just become like the ruler of a place. He wants to basically become a scholar and explorer. And so I like that facet to his personality and to his motivations. That's what he really wants. And so a lot of things he's really interested in are finding out more information, finding out about the Cielsen, about the past and history and all of these things. And so those are the things that I'm the most excited about, and the characters excited about them. So I like that felt like a really organic way to kind of learn more and switch it up. Although, his relationship with his father and some of those things, and the politics, and some of the early scenes, especially involving like slums and gladiators and stuff, a lot of those a nice chunk of this book I couldn't really care less about. But again, I was pulled through enough by the writing, and we get to see some really interesting things. There's some really brutal scenes toward the end, and just again, it feels like this is just really starting to scratch the surface, and then we're going to really open up. So I'm still very interested to see. So even though this was a pretty underwhelming book for me, and I'm hoping it's only up from here, but I will say too, if you're like me with this one too, I will definitely will let you know as I continue if it ends up being worth it. I certainly hope it does. But I feel like so many people, and I've had a lot of people kind of agree, even though most people are a bit higher than me on this. But I feel like this is one of those books you don't really hear a lot of the critiques about as much, because people are all like, oh my gosh, but the series as a whole is great. But it's important to note too that, not everybody is going to necessarily love this first book. I certainly didn't. I liked it enough. But I could see also that if you're not a prose reader, and that's not something that stands out and makes us enjoy, I could see maybe you not enjoying it as much. But also, if you are the kind of reader who doesn't really care about seeing, tropes and things like that, or if you just aren't familiar with some of the influences, I could also see it working there too. So I can see why this has wide appeal, because it's going to appeal to lots of different kinds of readers for different reasons. And so I think it's definitely one worth checking out if you haven't. If you like any of the things that I've talked about here, or are okay with the things that I talked about as negative too, I think there's a good chance that this one may work out for you. That's really it for this one though, so make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description as always for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizard of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.